Welcome to the special meeting of Larkspur City Council. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. It's 6 p.m. and we're meeting early so that we can do a business item of our fiscal year audit. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Margulies,
Here.
Councilmember Paulson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andre,
Here.
Mayor Way.
Here. If you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. That brings us to our main item, our business item 2.1, which is fiscal year 2024-25 audit of the city's basic financial statements. Could we have a staff report, please?
I'm gonna turn it over to Administrative Services Director Amelia Gabrielle.
And we do have one handout that's on the dais, and it will be available online for anyone who's watching us online now or in the future under our agendas.
Good evening. My name is Amelia Gabrielle. I am the Administrative Services Director for the City of Larkspur. So we will have with us tonight Mitesh Desai, who is an engagement partner with Badawi & Associates. This is a CPA firm that is auditing the books of the city. Mr. Desai will be presenting to you the audit highlights. So I'm going to turn it over to him as soon as he joins us. So just give me a moment. So I'll reach out to him. Mr. Desai, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time. So now I'm going to turn it over to you for the presentation of the fiscal year 24-25 audit. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much. Great. Let me just share my screen here. Let's make sure I go to the. Right.
We can see that. Thank
All
you.
right.
I just
Perfect.
wanted to suggest that we have two newer council members. So if it would be all right with you, if during the course of your presentation, if some have questions, we can stop and they can ask directly rather than waiting till the end. Would that be all right with you?
Yes, of course. Feel
Okay.
free to just interrupt me, and I'll be happy to explain or answer any questions.
Great. Okay, thank you. So if you have anything during his talk, we don't have to wait till the end.
Great, perfect. Well, thanks again for allowing me to present the audit remotely, and have a number of slides to kind of go over the audit. Essentially, I'll give everyone a background about our firm and the engagement team, the deliverables and the scope of our audit methodology, the areas of primary audit risk that we identified and addressed, the auditor's report, and a few slides on the financial statements. Lastly, I'll conclude with some required communications that we need to make as the auditors, and talk about new accounting standards, or at least just list them for everyone. Right, with our firm, so just some numbers about our firm. So we've been auditing for about 25 years. We have 25 years of audit experience. Primarily, we deal with governmental audit clients, primarily cities. And we have about 30 employees, and touch wood, and no lawsuits at this point. In terms of the engagement team, so I was the engagement partner. The audit senior was Tim Coe, who was supervising fieldwork. We had two audit staff, Angel and Ahmed. Angel is actually a senior with our firm, but she was participating as an audit staff in this audit. In terms of deliverables, so we've issued our report on the basic financial statements. We are going to issue a what's referred to as an ARPA examination report. The ARPA examination just is an alternative to doing a full federal audit on your federal funds when you have majority of the federal funds coming from the ARPA revenues. It's not issued yet since we were waiting on some information from the feds. That's now been provided, so we'll probably be issuing this report shortly in the coming weeks. With the governmental audits, we also issue another report, which is a report on internal control matters and compliance and other matters. It's also referred to as a yellow book report. And we do a agreed upon procedure report on your GAN limit or appropriations limit schedule. And lastly, we issue a letter, which is referred to as a SAS 114 letter, which is communications with those charged with governance. This letter essentially is a written form of the required communications that I'll be kind of concluding with on the presentation. In terms of our audit methodology, our audit is done in 4 phases. It starts with the planning phase, where we gather information and finalize timing of all the various audit procedures that we need to do. This is early in the calendar year before the fiscal year ends. We then do an interim phase of the audit, or it's referred to as a risk assessment phase, where we evaluate internal controls, interview city staff, and identify risks that we need to address as part of the audit. The third phase is the year-end phase, and this is when we get the numbers from the city and actually test those numbers and perform auditing procedures, obtaining confirmations to essentially determine if the numbers are fairly stated or not. And lastly is the reporting phase, where we actually will draft our opinions, and we also assist the city in preparing their financial statements. In terms of areas of primary audit risk, so our audit is performed on a risk-based approach. And there are a couple of risks here that I'm listing. These risks are not necessarily anything specific to the city or any problematic issue at the city. These are risks that exist in all audits, so don't be alarmed by me listing them out here. Essentially, this first risk is the risk of management override of controls, which is inherent when you have internal controls that those who put them in place may decide not to follow them if they so choose, which is referred to as management override of internal controls. It exists it's inherent in just an audit in itself. We address this risk by assigning more experienced staff to more complex areas of the audit, incorporating a level of unpredictability, so performing different procedures or looking at different accounts when we can. We consider and look at accounting principles adopted by management. We do look at manual adjustments, which are referred to as manual journal entries to the numbers. So anytime management goes in and manually adjusts the numbers, we will look at that to make sure they're appropriate and supported. Any estimates are evaluated for reasonableness, and also if there's been any change in methodology in determining those estimates. If there are any unusual transactions identified when we're scanning through the general ledger, we'll obtain more understanding about why there were those types of transactions. And then also we do our inquiries with staff about fraud, and if there's any identified fraud or any allegations of fraud. The second significant risk is relating to improper revenue recognition. Just in general, the auditing standards are written primarily for the corporate sector. However, it is the same for governments, that revenues is a very significant line item in your financial statements. And with that, we do need to pay more focus to revenues. We address that risk by confirming a lot of your revenues that you record, so property taxes, sales taxes, and other significant revenues. And we also do a lot of analytical procedures, budget to actuals, current year to prior analysis on those revenues. Estimates is a significant risk. So we also look at your estimates to determine if they were determined reasonably, what was the basis for them, and if there was any change in methodology. And these are the significant estimates that are in your financial statements. So your fair value of investments, capital asset useful lives, or your pension and other post-employment benefit amounts are estimates as well. In terms of the auditor's report, so our audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So these are the rules that we follow when we're performing our audit. And since this is a governmental audit, we also follow government auditing standards, and those standards are supplemental to those generally accepted auditing standards.
Mr. Desai, can I ask you a quick question back on the controls, the internal controls?
Yes.
When you're auditing that, do you take a look at whether the manual adjustments or just regular entries conform to existing council policy? Is that part of your audit, or is that outside the scope of your audit?
Probably not necessarily directly as part of the scope of our audit. We do obtain accounting policies and procedures over various accounting cycles, like how you're supposed to process accounts payable, investments, cash, and so forth. And we essentially would determine if it's consistent, but we don't necessarily evaluate every single council policy and kind of see if everything was done in that order. Essentially, we would first obtain accounting policies from management, review them, and then also interview staff, and then document the process and the internal controls that are in place. We don't necessarily test, or we don't test internal controls. It's not required for us to test them. The minimum is that we would evaluate if internal controls are in place. And we only look at key controls. So those would be controls that prevent and detect material misstatements in the numbers. So in terms of other types of issues or immaterial items, those controls we don't necessarily pay focus on because they're not relating to the financial statements.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So we've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is also referred to as a clean opinion. And that means that your financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. So the audit is done on a sampling basis and a risk-based approach. So we can't necessarily say that there's absolutely no errors in your financial statements, but if there are any, they should be immaterial. Accounting policies have been consistently applied. The estimates in the financial statements are reasonable. Also, the disclosures that accompany the financial statements, we believe those are complete and accurate. So it's quite lengthy number of disclosures in there. Just going over some of the numbers. I have a couple of slides here, just looking at the past 3 years, and this is focused on the government-wide financial statements. So after the management discussion and analysis section of the report, there is financial statements, and the first set of financial statements are the government-wide financial statements. And this is essentially a consolidation of all your funds and reported together, including some non-current items such as capital assets and long-term debt. So this is looking at those statements and only looking at the assets. So you can see here, nothing significant. You have increases in cash investments, and you had increases in capital assets just from construction activity going on at the city. But otherwise, no significant changes in anything else. On the liability side, some increase in accounts payable, which I believe relates to some of those capital projects that were ongoing. So that just naturally has more payables that are due. But otherwise, no other significant changes. Some decrease in long-term debt, naturally, as those debts are paid off. But otherwise, nothing significant here. This is net position. Just net position is another term for equity in the governmental financial statements. And this equity or net position is classified into three main classifications. So you have net investment in capital assets, restricted, and unrestricted. Net investment in capital assets represents your capital assets, your equipment, buildings, infrastructure, less any debt that was issued to obtain those capital assets. So you can see there was an increase here just as a relating to that increase in capital assets. Restricted equity or net position is going to be those amounts relating to restricted funds. So any monies that are externally constrained by laws or contracts, such as your gas tax monies, for example, those would be presented in restricted. And there was no significant change in restricted here. And then the unrestricted amount essentially is your residual. So essentially it's your total net position, less amounts that are classified as net investment in capital assets and less restricted. So you can see that you do have negative amounts here, which seem odd, but essentially because you have your pension liability, other post-employment benefit liabilities, compensated absences, liability, all on your financial statements, that's the reason why you have a negative here. So it's not necessarily anything alarming. Once you account for those long-term liabilities, essentially you still be in a good position. So this is not unusual. On the slide 19 here, this is what analysis we do, which is a net cost of service to tax revenues. And this is pulling from the governmental activities statement of activities statement. And essentially what we're doing here is taking the net cost of service, so taking your program expenses less program revenues, and comparing that to your tax revenues that you generate. And there are some things that can cause some unusual fluctuations, like capital grants on the schedule. But essentially, it's to show you whether the tax revenues are sufficient, or if there may be some issues in covering program expenses. So you can see this year there was a slight increase in your tax revenues, and program, your net cost of service didn't change much. But this essentially is what this slide is for. Moving on, slide 20. This is a slide on the general fund financial statements. So this is following the government-wide financial statements and just looking at the general fund by itself. And what we're doing here is comparing your unrestricted fund balance. So unrestricted fund balance would include your assigned, committed, unassigned fund balances, and comparing that to your total annual expenditures in the general fund. The General Finance Officers Association, GFOA, they recommend that you have at least 2 months of reserves available. So this is just essentially determining how much of that unrestricted fund balance you have as it relates to expenditures. So you can see in terms of number of months, the city is doing quite well, that you have a lot more than 2 months. This is looking at your pension liability, the city's pension liability. The pension liability essentially has a lot of assumptions that go into it that the actuary actually uses to calculate how much needs to be reported by the city, such as life expectancy, retirement ages, and so forth. A significant assumption is the discount rate, which essentially discounts all the future cash flows to a total liability. And this is a required disclosure that goes in your financial statements. So in your pension disclosures, you will see this and these amounts as well. And so you're just looking at, what would be your net pension liability had the discount rate been 1% lower or 1% higher. So you can see here for 2025, currently your net pension liability is 4.2 million. But had the actuary used a discount rate that was 1% lower, the liability could have been $14 million. And had the discount rate been 1% lower, you would have an asset of $4 million. So it's really volatile, which is why the disclosure is required. And I'm not necessarily saying that one number is more accurate than the other. This is just to give you that range of what that number could be. So if you are planning to make any financial decisions, such as making a lump sum payment to CalPERS or issuing pension obligation bonds, you have some additional information available. This is looking at your net OPEB liability, and can see here we're doing a similar analysis for the discount rate. And then you can see here for 2025, it's not that big of a difference if the discount rate was 1% lower or 1% higher. And the reason for that is when you're looking at the annual cost of a retiree, when you're paying someone's pension compared to a premium that's going to be paid annually, the pension is going to be a lot more. So when you adjust that for the discount rate, it's going to create a much bigger difference than your OPEB liability. And the OPEB liability is your retiree healthcare plan. And
Before you get into the required communications, can we just
Sure.
pause to see if their council has any questions of
Sure.
what you presented so far?
Yes, definitely.
No? Yes, okay. I think Gabe Paulson might have one.
Yeah, just a quick one, Mitesh. So what you just went over the OPEB, and I'm trying to understand. I think the city has a responsibility to, clearly state the risks. And is that in something that you extract from the audit, or is that something that's already in our reporting?
It should, maybe I'm not understanding the question. Like, where do we get the dollar amounts for?
No,
for-
not the specifics, but
Right.
there is some risk associated with, the interest rates and just, the way our debts are structured. And is that something that we're as city responsible, for documenting somewhere, or is this just something that are writing down as an observation?
So in terms of the discount
I think City Manager Schwartz has a comment on that first.
The city's required every 2 years to commission an actuarial study of its OPEB liability. That's outside of the audit process. And I think that's what you're alluding to. That's your compliance with your requirement to document the exposure that the city has because of this liability. The numbers that are generated by the actuary are given to the auditor for consideration as part of the audit.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Stephanie, do you have any?
Hi, Mr. Desai. Okay, so I'm trying to understand this net OPEB liability and also the net pension liability. So I understand these graphs are the liability that's shown on our balance sheet. But I'm trying to understand what the actual expense is for the year. So am I supposed to be looking at the deferred outflows and inflows of resources if I'm trying to get the actual expense for the year?
Sure. The expense is, I guess expense could mean two things. So expense on the government-wide financial statements is relating to service costs, interest expense, a number of other things. That's disclosed in the notes to your financial statements. So if you go to the pension footnotes, the pension
Yes,
expense
yeah,
is
exactly.
disclosed.
I'm on page 85. So if I'm looking at it on the page 85 of the PDF, so I'm just trying to understand what the actual expense was. And you have a table here of projected deferred outflows or inflows of resources. And in this case, for OPEB liability, and it's, $500,000 for 2026. So is that let me think about this. Would that be a deferred inflow, or it looks like a deferred inflow?
Sure. I can explain that. It's
Okay.
a bit complicated. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to find the page number on my financial statements really quick. But the OPEB expense is essentially what is a combination of things similar to pension expense. It includes service cost, interest on the liability, and amortization of the deferred inflows and outflows, which the deferred inflows and outflows, when your net OPEB liability and net pension liability go up or down. It goes up and down for a number of reasons. Some of it is due to just having more employees, them earning more years of service credit. You have also changes in assumptions that the actuary may have made, differences between what was expected and what actually occurred. Some of those items can be reflected directly into expense, and some things have to be amortized gradually into expense. So the OPEB expense or pension expense that are in those note disclosures is essentially for the year what was hitting the income statement from both either what was allowed to directly be recognized as expense and also the amortization. The table that you see there, that's kind of showing you the amortization table of how much is amortized or the amount of expense that's going to be recognized each year. So 2026, 2027. That's essentially just from the table before it that actually shows So yeah, it's on the financial state page 73, which is that the page that you're.
Hold on one second. I can go there real quick.
Because yeah, it's a bit it's a complex number, and it can sometimes when I'm asked about pension expense and OPEB expense, sometimes it's council is asking about the contributions made for the year. So the amount that's reflected in the footnotes are not going to be representative of what you actually contributed to CalPERS.
Amelia, did you want to speak on that?
Yes, so for the other public employment benefit, so the amount expensed, the cash out the door
Mhm.
is about 600,000 a year for the
Okay.
retirees' health benefits.
Okay.
Uh,
And then what about the pension liability? That's what I was looking for, is on an annual basis, how much should we be thinking about budgeting for? Because some of the, I mean, I understand a lot of the accounting is non-cash and it's amortization and so forth, but what's the actual expense for the year?
So the actual expense for unfunded accrued liability is about 600,000, and it's going to go up to 850,000 over the next 2-3 years. We have a schedule that was provided by CalPERS.
Okay.
So it's going to plateau at about 850, and those
Okay.
numbers are changing annually based on actuary data that we receive from CalPERS. So this is the unfunded accrued liability. So we have a mandatory payment we have to make annually to CalPERS for that. So that does not include what we're paying for the active employee. For the active employees, there's a rate that is applied to the payroll, and we pay this every other week to CalPERS. So do you want to know what that number is as well?
Roughly.
Okay,
on an
so I
annual
have
basis.
it open in front of me.
Okay,
Just
great.
hold on.
Thank you.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
I'll let Amelia answer
Okay.
first, but I do have one thing to add.
So for CalPERS, it's estimated at $392,000. This was the budget for fiscal year 24-25. And this is the contribution of the employer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And hold on, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, one thing I want the council to be aware of and take some caution with is that CalPERS provides us with an amortization schedule of this liability out 25 years. But that amortization schedule is not like your mortgage. It changes every year based on reassessed variables. So it's difficult for you to use it as a long-term planning tool because the magnitude of that liability is likely going to grow if the current circumstances at CalPERS with its portfolio continue.
Gabe, did
Yeah,
you?
just to follow up on.
Hold on. Any further questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, more.
No.
Just a clarification on the pension liability. So is it 4.25 million or net pension liability right now?
Right, it's about 4.3.
4.3. And I think you wrote in your audit that if the discount rate goes down 1%, like from 6.9 to 5.9, the liability triples to 14.5 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that just kind of stuck out. Is that an unusual risk, or should we be, addressing that? It just seems like that goes a little bit to the city manager's point, right? That, that variability is something we can't predict. And I'm wondering if that's a risk we need to look at.
So during the reform movement of the 2012, 2013 era for CalPERS, significant emphasis was placed on what the discount rate should be. It is a mix of actuarial analysis, best practice by financial modeling, and politics. And unfortunately, that last variable is the loudest and one that has played the largest influence. So it's difficult to answer your question because the politics have pressured CalPERS to stop moving the discount rate downward, even though in reality, they probably should to better reflect the true liability.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Any further questions? Okay. Let's keep going. I think you're into your disclosures now, a required communications section.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate all the questions. It shows usually people get a bit tired of listening to our auditors.
We've
So-
got some really highly skilled council members who understand this much greater than I do. So
Okay.
keep going.
Perfect. And this is going to be the boring section of the presentation. So actually, you probably don't want it to be very exciting, as usually means that there are a lot of issues to discuss. But this first slide essentially is just clarifying our auditor's responsibilities and what's management responsibilities, especially when we assist management with compiling the financial statements. It's often misconstrued that the entire document that comes out of our office is an auditor's report, when the fact is that only the reports that are on our letterhead are our auditor's report. So the auditor's opinion, and then the letter on internal controls and compliance are really our auditor's report. The financial statements, the notes are all management's documents. So with that, our responsibilities is only to opine on those financial statements. So that includes evaluating internal controls over financial reporting, evaluating compliance with laws and regulations, reviewing the financial statements, and communicating with council. Management are responsible for the financial statements and establishing internal control over financial reporting, and also implementing internal controls over fraud, informing us if there were any instances of fraud, and to take corrective action on audit findings when we have them. Our responsibilities also include independence. So this is why you have an external party doing the audit and not someone within your organization, is that we have to maintain our independence and appear free of bias. So we are prohibited from doing certain activities, such as providing management with adjustments and posting them without any approval, acting as management, being employed at the entity, and so forth. We are permitted to assist in preparing the financial statements with some safeguards, which includes an independent review from a second partner. Otherwise, we didn't perform any other services that impact our independence. No issues with performing the audit in time. There were a couple of new accounting pronouncements implemented this year. The first is GASB Statement number 101, which updates the measurement of your compensated absence liability, which is your liability for paid time off. The big change is that previously the liability was focused on what is going to be paid out in cash. So essentially, if there's a cash out value to those hours, essentially that was used to measure the liability. Now, essentially, it's based on what is more than likely to be used. So we also need to evaluate and estimate how much of unpaid or leave that doesn't have a cash out value would be used. So there was an increase in the liability this year, primarily because of evaluating from your sick leave how much of a liability that is. So that was the biggest change. Otherwise, with Statement 102, this is when you have anything that impacts your financial statements or your organization, that something has occurred where now it brings risk. So example would be if you had a large revenue provider, which you were now informed that they will be going out of business, and that would significantly impact your financial statements. That would be a type of disclosure that would be included. There were none that we identified. You do have naturally business risks, but something has to trigger that disclosure. If so, some instance of a closure or something like that. But otherwise, we didn't identify anything that needed to be disclosed. No difficulties in performing the audit. Naturally, we had some audit adjustments, nothing material. Management recorded all of those adjustments. In terms of internal controls or financial reporting, we did not have any material weaknesses in the audit. In terms of new accounting pronouncements, oh, sorry, went up a bit fast. So currently, there are only two new accounting pronouncements coming the city's way. Statement 103 will change some of the formatting of how the financial statements look. Also, the budget to actual schedules will look a bit different. But otherwise, I think for the most part, it's not going to be too different. And then GASB statement number 104 has some clarifications and disclosures requirements for certain capital assets, such as your lease and SPIDA assets, if you have any. But otherwise, that's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Before the council asks questions, is there anything staff wants to add in addition? No? Okay. Thank you, sir. Stay on here just in case we have some questions. I think Councilmember Paulson has some.
Yeah, I know we're running a little bit over, so I'll be brief. Three questions. One is our Measure B, that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I think we transferred out $2.5 million. Can you confirm that the transfers were strictly for infrastructure and debt service and not for anything, like general operations?
I believe so. Yeah. So essentially where the transfers went to, and I would have to look. I want to probably confirm with my work papers. Let me just double check the financial statements really quick in terms of the
Okay, that'd be great.
transfer.
The second question is, we have a really small staff, and I'm kind of wondering about segregation of duties. Did you find any instances where, like, one person who approves the invoice also writes the check, or is the segregation complied to?
Yeah, we felt there was no issues with segregation of duties, which I know it is a challenge with smaller organizations. Usually, with smaller organizations, there are compensating controls as well in place in those situations where there would be more reviews in place rather than necessarily like in a county where you would have one person that does solely purchase orders and another person does solely writing checks. So there are some shared duties, but we felt that they're adequately in terms of if someone can do something all by themselves without getting caught for material transactions, that is considered as part of our audit.
Thank you.
Okay, one last question. Sorry, Dan, you wanted to say something? Yeah, and the last question is again just sort of procedural. I trust my staff, but I think we have to ask. So, any instances of management override? Where we tried to expedite a transaction and didn't kind of follow our own controls.
No, nothing of that nature was identified. No.
Okay, thank you.
Anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just want to emphasize that I can confirm that none of the Measure B money was directed into operations. I think by that you mean salaries. Otherwise I'm not sure, because in my mind, enhancing infrastructure is operational. The other thing I just want to be clear is the auditor's never going to flag that. That's not part of the audit to determine, because Measure B is a general sales tax, even though you as a council have restricted its use. It's the oversight committee, your appointed committee, who is your body that is keeping track of exactly what we're doing with the money and would call us to task if we couldn't demonstrate that we'd spent it consistently with your policy. And in fact, that committee met on Monday. So
I'll ask them. Thanks for that.
Amelia, you
Yes,
had
yes.
something you wanted to add?
Yes, if I may add, so on page 15 of the audit in the management discussion and analysis under Measure B, you'll see the description of how the money was spent. So the transfer of $2,589,000 includes payment of debt principal and interest of $1,407,000. And the transfer also includes $5,000 for administrative fees that were paid to U.S. Bank, and also $1,035,000 to fund capital improvement projects. There's also $141,000 for the payment of the fire lease truck to the Central Marin Authority. So it's in the audit. It's on page 15. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you.
This is a business item and not a public hearing, but I would offer anybody who has a pressing question about our audit, they can step forward. But if not, I think I will close this item. We're all fine? Sure.
First of all, I just want to compliment the staff. The management DNA, which I know a lot of people skim or never read, I read, and there's a lot of detail and it's very transparent. And so I know how much time it takes to put together an MD&A. And so well done. Thank you.
Thank you. It says for the council is to receive the presentation, review, and consider acceptance. Do we need a motion to accept the audit? Yes? All right. Would anybody like to provide that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? No. Thank you, sir, and thank you, staff, for that very much. That adjourns our special meeting, and we are now adjourning to our regular meeting, which is the regular meeting of the Larkspur City Council on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. It is now 6:48. Thank you for your patience, those in the audience who have been sitting through our audit. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Margulies,
Here.
Councilmember Paulson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andre,
Here.
Mayor Way.
Here. And I'd like to point everyone to the amended agenda. Thank you, Allison, for getting some attachment changes, and they have been added to the online agenda also. And if anyone, any of us need an extra copy, I think she put some up here. Terrific. So that brings us to item 2, which is public comment. This is a time for members of the public to address the council for matters that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have an item that you would like to bring up, please step forward. Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone with their hand raised in the Zoom audience? All right, thank you. So we will close public comment. That brings us to what I think half the audience in the room is here for, which is our presentation of tonight, which is an update of the Larkspur Wrecking Crew. Can I have a staff report, please?
Just them.
Okay, fantastic. Come forward, the Wrecking Crew team. You're moving fast. So for our record, just introduce yourself and who else will be speaking with you?
It's just going to be me.
Oh, fantastic.
So my name is Jean Friedel. For the purpose of this, I am the president of the Larkspur Wrecking Crew. Madam Mayor and City Council and staff, thank you for your time this evening. I know you've already had a long agenda. I know you have a long one in front of you, so I'll try to be brief. First, a little history on Larkspur Wrecking Crew. For those of you who don't know, we are a nonprofit. We were started in 2015. It started out of a conversation between myself and then the Recreation Director, Dick Whitley. And it was about trying to do field trips for the high school students who wanted to tour Southern California colleges. And he mentioned that some of the students couldn't afford that program. And so being a fundraiser by nature, I said I knew there was something we could do. So I filed some paperwork, created a logo, and got to work fundraising. That was 10 years ago. Since then, we've become a partner with the very popular and growing annual concert series, Music in the Park, with Director Stone graciously, he's back there, allowing Wrecking Crew to not only provide the beverage booth, but to also be a real partner in the event and helping it grow. We've also always made a point to invite you all to be there as our host, and you've all graciously showed up, and we've appreciated that, so thank you very much. We're already looking forward to 2026. Lots of great new ideas on tap, pun intended. So thank you. We partnered with the first ever pumpkin patch, and most recently with this one in past October. I think this is Director Stone's favorite event. It's fun. The Wrecking Crew has been on site in costume, no less. doing trick or treating. We did arts and crafts, which went on for more hours than I can think that arts and crafts can go on. Who knew you could do so much with tongue depressors, but you can apparently. And that's something that we did free to all the community. And I think everyone there has shown up for one of them or a part of the time. You saw how incredible it was. Director Stone also pulled off, I think, which was a coup for the county. It might have been the first, or if not, was close to the first. We got our community park trees lit. And if you've been by Piper Park, they're already lit. We were there for the first year. Hot cocoa night in the pouring rain. Nick has taught us that Park and Rec is a rain or shine event.
Last year it was a typhoon.
Pushing the water out of the tent and not
Yes.
making sure you're not underneath it when the rain drops on you. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Nick has taught us a lot about that. We fundraised for that event all year. Music in the Park helps support that. We made a lot of new friends and new partners along the way in the last 10 years. In May, we partnered with the Friends of the Larkspur Library and the incredible Barbara Friday on Touch Truck. It was their most successful event ever. And we plan to continue to partner with them on that. They're taking a year off, so we'll work with them again when they're ready to do that. There's a little event happening this year that'll take over that little library thing that's opening. That'll take the event, take away from that this year, so we won't do that. Most recently, we worked with the downtown Larkspur merchants and the Jay Holland to help develop the plan for Magic on Magnolia. And that's a partnership that we plan to continue to grow, working with the local downtown merchants and partnering on the recreation events. That's something that the wrecking crew has really wanted to do, and we've never been able to do it. But I think with Jay's help and his movement with the merchants, I think we're really going to be able to make that happen going forward. I'm very proud to say that it's not just me and my treasurer. And we grew our board this year, most recently. A lot of them are here in the audience with me tonight. So I'd like to take a moment, introduce them to you. Some of them you know very well. She's a planning commissioner as well. Our treasurer, Tamara Hall. I think you know the gentleman on the end, former Recreation Director Dick Whitley. People said I wouldn't get him, but I did.
But he's not in a kilt tonight.
Not in a kilt. The lovely lady to his left, Kristen Whitley. And then Reed Baxter, who runs the Bon Air Shopping Center, who also is a Park and Rec Commissioner, joined our board this year. We also have advisory board members. Jay Holland, I've already mentioned, he joined our team this year as an advisor. And we're looking to other community members to join us in that capacity. We also launched our website this year, and I know that's working because we get a lot of bot mail from all over the world. Clean that out on a daily basis. We're super excited about agenda item 8.1 on your agenda tonight, the recreation building and community rooms that are going in. We sat through the 2 meetings that you guys spent hours on, so I thank you for your time with that. That was hard, and I want to reiterate to you the offer that Wrecking Crew made to you. And I know capital campaign is probably not in the works, time commitments. I know you've got to get going on that, but much like the funding support that the library received, Wrecking Crew is here if nicer or more doesn't fit within the city's budget constraints. I would encourage you to invite us to that discussion to help fundraise, because recreation deserves all the fun and nice things as well. So we're at the ready to help fundraise for those projects. In closing, what I really the reason I asked Dan to give me some time tonight is the thing that we're most proud of to do tonight is we wanted to give the city a check for $5,000 to help support the lights projects. So after the meeting, if Dan will tell me who to write the check to, we'd like to give you guys a check for $5,000 to support the lights, and to continue the partnership with y'all. Because as
Thank you,
Wrecking Crew
Jean.
grows.
Don't leave.
Oh.
Are there questions that everybody has? Anyone have?
No, I'm Jeannie. I just wanted to thank you and everybody sitting here. It's really I'm a customer. I've got a 4-year-old and 8-year-old and my own inner child. So you guys have done awesome. Thank you so much.
Any
Thank
other
you all.
questions?
We'll be out on the 12th for train rides. There'll be electric train rides.
I saw that.
Weather permitting. That's one of the ones where rain will help the electric train. We'll probably stop that one, but we'll be there. So
Jean, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are a gem to Larkspur. You always have been, and your dedication and your continued support and your continued involvement is extraordinary because I know you have a lot of different organizations you work with and support, but I really appreciate it, and I think we all do. And I just appreciate that you're persistent in keeping things running with the wrecking crew and getting a broad swath of community support. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Good time. Thank you.
Any questions? Everybody in the audience is part of the team, so thanks, Jean. Is there any questions online? I don't see any hands raised. All right, fantastic. That brings us to item 4, which is approval of the consent calendar. There are a few changes that have been amended onto the agenda. Thank you, Allison. Are there any council members who'd like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? No. All right, that brings us to item 5, city manager's report.
I just have a few brief calendar items for the council and the public. Just a reminder, because in December, we often are closed or dealing with a lot of the issues that come up at the end of the calendar year. First off, the council will not hold its regular meeting on December 17. However, next week on December 10, there will be a brief special meeting to do the transition of the mayor. So primarily a ceremonial meeting. And then in addition, wanted to let the public know, as a reminder, we tend to close at the end of the year to the public. This gives our staff an opportunity to enjoy the holidays, but it also allows us to do a lot of cleanup in our facilities during the break that we can't do when we're open to the public. So we'll be closed to the public starting on Wednesday, December 24, and we will reopen on Monday, January 5th of 2026. And that's true this year of all departments, but of course, our first responders, our public works staff included, will be on hand to support the community through that period. With that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. That leaves us to item 6, council members' reports. Start with Sarah, anything?
So thank you. I just wanted to bring an update to the community regarding my role as the representative on the Ross Valley Sanitary District. They meet actually the same nights we do, the third Wednesday of the month. So on November 19th, they had their board of directors meeting, and one of the topics was 2000 Larkspur Landing was on the agenda. And as many of you may know, this property has an RFQ was put out by the Ross Valley Sanitary District to bring in developers for developing the land, and they partnered with Urban to do the RFQ, and Urban had predicted that maybe they would get 10 to 12 responses, but in fact, they got 24 responses. So it speaks to the rare opportunity to acquire a very coveted residential development parcel in Larkspur. On November 19th, they approved a recommended shortlist. So 5 of those 24 developers were selected. Those 5 developers will be receiving an RFP that's the next step from Ross Valley Sanitary District. And the timeline is the RFP should go out either this week or next. Responses by those 5 developers will be due in January. They'll be reviewed, and then all 5 developers will be interviewed in February, and a recommendation for a selected developer will be made to the board for approval in March. So they're expecting that once that developer is selected and approved by the board, it will be a pretty truncated timeline from development selection through the DDA to close. So one thing that was noted is that per the objective design and development standards for the city of Larkspur, the site can hold up to approximately 340 units, and it will have a maximum of a 5-story height, but there is an ability to increase to 7 stories with a bonus density. So it's moving rapidly and it's very exciting. And I, will keep my eye on it and will continue to report back to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. We used to have on our website, I think it's still there, kind of the timeline of the 2,000 Larkspur Landing process that's been going on a long time. So if people who are interested in that, I believe it's still on our website, which will show all of the history of that development opportunity. Anything?
Sure. Just a couple brief items from the Transportation Authority of Marin. One, we deal with so many small details here as a council and, in general in Larkspur, we're not the biggest town, but one opportunity we all have is to look at the entire Bay Area, and MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission or Committee, they have a Plan Bay Area 2050. And this is something that looks at traffic, housing, jobs, environmental issues like sea level rise. And it's really a master document, and it kind of ties Larkspur and Marin together with Alameda, Contra Costa, all the counties. So it's a very strategic thing, and the public is welcome. So actually tomorrow in Novato at 6 o'clock is the public hearing. If anyone wants to Zoom, if you just go to planbayarea.com, or I'm sorry, planbayarea.org, and all the information's there, what this is, and how to get to the meeting or how to Zoom into the meeting. But I highly encourage whoever has that kind of interest, or even to see, we even read in the IJ our school population has dropped, and housing costs we know. So these are issues that we really need to address collectively. One other minor one is a really interesting part of TAM that I didn't know that much about is their alternative fuels program. And it turns out that we have 1,000 EV chargers in Marin, and TAM has helped install. They've done about $175,000 of rebates and helped install 381 heads. So that's something that I'll be connecting with my colleague here, Councilmember Margulies, because I know our environmental issue, how we can work with TAM in Larkspur specifically around, for example, multifamily, because we're trying to drive adoption. They're doing some good things. They work with MCE, and this kind of coordination. I think TAM plays a good role. And anyway, I'll be putting you in touch with some people there. So that's it for me.
Great. Anything?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update on MCE. I know it's been in the press a lot. I think, a lot of the critical issues have been reported on. One is just we are trying to advocate on behalf of ratepayers for more financial and fiscal transparency. There is going to be a governance review. It's a very unwieldy board. There's 34 members, and so it's very difficult to get everyone on the same page. And I think a lot of, we're all elected officials, and everyone, brings different skills. But I would say, a lot of people sit on the board of MCE because they are strong supporters of renewable energy. As we all are. But I think the difficulty is it's a very complex agency, and it deals with the procurement of energy and delivery of energy to ratepayers. And so while it doesn't own energy generation assets, it does enter into hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts to deliver energy to all of us. And so it's complex. To date, there's not been a whole lot of transparency in terms of the contracts that have been signed and the timing of some of those contracts. And so we are trying to get a better understanding of that on behalf of our ratepayers. There are definitely some headwinds just outside of the contracts, even though market pricing has reverted to historic norms. There are things happening at the PG&E level and with the CPUC, with respect to how PG&E can pass along some of its transmission costs to the CCAs. And so that will be another, pressure on MCE to raise their rates. And, we want to decrease rates on behalf of, our ratepayers. And so it's going to be a challenge, but we're working through it, and there will be more to come. If any of you are interested in this topic, all the meetings are, they're online, they're open to the public, and certainly, welcome anyone who is interested in getting involved. Thanks.
Fantastic. I just want to commend Vice Mayor Andre for her absolute due diligence in the financial structure of MSCE. There's been a four-part investigative report that's been published in the Marin IJ that is really trying to shine light on an organization that we all are paying into. And I just want to commend her for having not only the financial skills, but the diligence to do it. And we've been receiving as a council a lot of public comment from our community members who have also recognized how important it is that we hold our fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities very seriously. And this is an example of that. So kudos to you. I only have fun things to talk about. Saturday is the Magic on Magnolia, which is all day Saturday open house for the businesses. The street won't be closed this year, but there will be activities, and there are lots of vendors and who will be in various stores, and it'll be festive. So please go on Saturday if you can. And Sunday, the Lark Creek Shops are holding their event, which will have carolers and spiked and non-spiked hot chocolate. I saw the sign when I was down there at Perry's. So that's just how we celebrate the holiday season around here. And everybody have a good time and stay safe, because I don't want to have the fire chief have to come rescue you. All right. So that brings us to our public hearing, 7.1, which is introduction of ordinance 1095. Amending Larkspur's Municipal Code Title III to implement the fire protection impact fee. I'd like to show everyone, remind everyone that there have been some changes, and it was amended on 12/2, and that amended ordinance is also available online or in the back of the room, should you be so inclined. So we will be holding a public hearing and considering waiving the first reading and introduce ordinance 1095 by title only. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here with Ruben Martin, the fire chief. I'll do my best to keep my comments brief here. Based on the direction you provided at your November 19th meeting, staff has returned with ordinance 1095, which would amend Title III of the Larkspur Municipal Code, and it would establish a fire protection impact fee. The fee would be imposed on new residential development projects, as we discussed at that meeting. And it would be collected by the city, on behalf of the Central Marin Fire Department and used to address equipment, facility, and vehicle needs associated with the projected growth of the city. As outlined in the staff report, the fee is consistent with several goals and policies established in the general plan related to providing the community with fire protection services and ensuring that new development pays its fair share of those services. Additionally, based on your feedback at that meeting, the proposed 50% fee reduction for deed-restricted affordable units has been included in the ordinance, which again is consistent with the goals and policies of the housing element related to incentivizing affordable housing development. Should the council choose to move forward with the ordinance, staff will return at a future meeting. I believe we're targeting January 7th with a resolution to adopt the development impact fee nexus study that was prepared by Matrix Consulting Group, and a resolution to set the impact fee amount that has been established in that report. So staff is recommending that you introduce the ordinance by title only and waive the first reading. And that's all I have to say tonight. I don't know if Ruben wants to add anything else.
Question, Alex. Since we are a joint powers agreement between us and Corte Madera, has these same changes been made there, and have they introduced their ordinance yet?
They had introduced and adopted an urgency ordinance. They met again last night, and I think Ruben can offer a little bit more insight. I don't believe they've adopted their formal ordinance quite yet.
But they have this new amended version?
Ours is a little, the amendments that were added to ours are not, to my understanding, in the Corte Madera ordinance.
Do they need to be consistent or?
So what we're trying to do, excuse me,
Sure.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Ruben Martin, your local fire chief. So we did have a meeting last night where we had the initial reading of the permanent ordinance, and it was passed at a 5-0 vote with some minor amendments based on some of the language that was within their amendment. Some of it was changed to mirror the ordinance that's here within the city of Larkspur, primarily on how the funds are to be managed. For example, within the town of Corte Madera, originally it said the fire impact fee funds would be managed by the community development department. Well, their council preferred it to be managed by the town manager, equivalent to how it is within our local ordinance here, that it to be managed by the city manager and those funds. So theirs are pretty much almost identical to ours. The goal is to try to have both ordinances mirror each other since we provide equivalent services to both jurisdictions.
Thank you. Was there anything further you needed to add?
No, I believe,
in the report?
I believe Alex covered it all. I just kind of wanted to reiterate of what we presented on our November 19th meeting is the goal of this impact fee is it's actually a new fee. We do not have fire impact fees. And the intent is for the fire department to grow as the community grows. Is looking at our RENA numbers that came out from the Association of Bay Area Governments is that they're allocating a certain number of units to our community over the next 10 years. The study that we projected was out for the next 15 years to 2040. And based on their projections, looking at somewhere around about 1,000 units, maybe about 997 units within the city of Larkspur. So what we want to do and what we're trying to do is get ahead of this train is to try to make sure that the fire department can continue to provide equal level of service to every single member of our community, whether it's existing members or new members. And so this impact fee here allows us to continue the growth as long as our community continues to grow.
Okay, before I open the public hearing, are there any questions, further questions of the chief or of senior planner?
Alex, does this exempt ADUs? I can't remember. I saw multifamily and residential. But I couldn't remember if this exempts ADUs.
It would exempt ADUs insofar as they're exempted under state law if they're beneath 750 square feet. ADUs over that limit can have impact fees assessed on them.
Okay. All right, since the public hearing, opening the public hearing, is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Anyone online who would like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, I'll close. I love that. I'll close the public hearing. It's the only time you get to wield that thing. Bring it back to the council. Are there further questions of? Okay, so it looks like we're waiving the first reading and we're introducing this by title only. So this is not a vote. There is a vote. I always forget that. Is there anyone who would like to move item 7.1, introduction of ordinance 1095? Don't all jump at once.
I'll do that. So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that matter passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to business item 8.1, Larkspur Recreation Department relocation. Adopt a budget amendment and authorize the city manager execute a consulting agreement with Kitchell CEM for design, build, criteria, document development, and construction management services. And we do have a handout on that, which is available in the back of the room and will also be available online. I think it's about a 5-page document. So we can have a staff report, please.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the public. Julian Skinner, I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Larkspur. So tonight's item is a follow-up on some presentations we've made before you previously regarding options for new recreation department facility in Piper Park. And so tonight is a formal request following up on the conversations we've had for a budget amendment and our first contract of that project. Just a reminder, what we're looking at here is new recreation offices in Piper Park to replace the current lease space in the school district just on the other side of the park. As was discussed at the previous meetings, we've landed on a enhanced modular type of construction. 2,400 square feet, looking at a 50-year life cycle building, and our all-in project cost is 3.1 million. So that's for the engineering, for the oversight, for the construction. That's the entire project cost as that we have estimated. And again, as a reminder from last time, we've extracted the electrical upgrades and the EV chargers out of this budget. We'll bring those to you separately. We still fully intend to move forward with those, but we are aware there's some other funding sources that we could bring forward to you for those. So we're setting those aside for now, but we are, as we move forward on this project, we are at the same time moving forward with discussions with PG&E and electrical engineers to advance the electrical upgrades and the electric vehicle chargers. Again, we've outlined a space where there used to be a public works trailer just west of the Piper Park parking lot, just west of where the existing electric vehicle chargers are. There's room for about 3,400 square feet there based on the modular construction. We're planning on a 2,400 square foot footprint, which includes some office space and flex space, public restrooms to replace the existing ones that are just north of the site, some storage, and then there is the potential for future addition onto the space. There's a more detailed floor plan. And again, based on our last conversations, it seemed there was a desire to match the number of public restrooms that we have now. So we fit a third public restroom into the floor plan, and that's the model we'll be moving forward with. Again, this is conceptual that we use to generate the budget for the project. We'll be working with the Recreation Director Stone to analyze the needs of the department and the public, and coming up with a floor plan to include in an RFP for its construction. Again, we're looking at enhanced modular. So the goal with an enhanced modular is to build something that's going to have the lifespan of a traditional construction project, but it allows for an accelerated construction period, and it's with high quality materials. This is the budget. So as we outlined before, we had estimated at 3.1 million. So that's the request before you tonight, is to formally adopt this as an amendment to the capital improvement program for this project. I provided a breakdown of that $3.1 million to show you roughly the components that make up that figure. And then I've highlighted a couple of items here to kick this project up as soon as you approve the budget amendment, is to hire Kitchell to start working on the criteria document, which is what we need to go out and do our RFQ, RFP to get the project underway. And then their contract would also include some construction and project management, similar to what they're doing on the library through the life of this project. So those two items are highlighted here in the overall budget. And so that's the other part of the request tonight, in addition to the budget amendment request for the 3.1 million in general fund reserve for this project, is to authorize the city manager to execute that contract with Kitchell. It's estimated at 258,000, which is above the threshold for the city manager to sign, which is why it's a request for the council to authorize that. So it's my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Julian. And just a reminder to the public, this item has been reviewed by the council at several meetings in the past, at least 2, maybe even 3, if I recall. We had one of those meetings, a very robust conversation that went on for a long time regarding this expenditure and the discussion of options. And we asked the staff to come back with revisions that we had suggested. So I mean, it's a big expenditure, but I want everybody to be assured that we have had some real significant debate about it and have landed on this particular decision. So before we move forward, are there any questions of Director Skinner by council?
Yeah, just a quick one. So Julian, thank you so much. I'm excited about this project. The structure cost is the 2.2 million roughly. Has that stayed pretty stable? Because I know when we were talking about it, there might have been a few unknowns, but is that looking like a figure that you're confident in? There won't be any changes in that, or?
Yeah, it's still the best estimate we have to date until we get some soils analysis and actually go out to the market. We're not going to know exactly what that number is. It does have a number of factors in it. There's a contingency allowance that's built in there. There's also an escalation that's built in there, given when we plan on actually doing the construction. So that's still, I wouldn't say it's overly conservative, but it's still the best number that we have. Yes.
And is there any, particular item or, line item that you think is most at risk, like, the cost of the metal or, anything in there that?
I mean, it's hard to say what happens 6 months out with, raw materials costs and things like that. But I would say barring anything out of the ordinary based on kind of the ebbs and flows that we've seen, I don't expect anything to fall outside of the parameters of the numbers that we presented here.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
they'll have to bring a budget amendment if that should happen. So, Sarah, did you have any question?
Thanks, Julian, for all this information. I just want to confirm that we are planning to provide renewable energy resources with the construction of this building, that we will be using solar.
Yeah, the plan is, and so much like we did with the library project, we anticipate there will be some add alternates included. So we're going to ask for there's minimums that you put on solar wise based on the building code. But then you can also augment that. So much like we did for the library, we'll set this up with add alternates. So that when we bring this back to you based on the cost of the construction, it will have to come to you to award. We'll be able to outline what those components are. So yes, batteries and solar are going to be part of what we're going to ask the contractor to provide pricing for.
Excellent. Thank you.
Stephanie, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. So can you confirm that we're going to go all electric here with heat pump for heating and also electric water heaters for water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And also just timing, like when do we expect, to have to be able to open this new project to the public?
Yeah. So the goal from start to finish, which we haven't quite started yet. So after tonight, we've got the money in place. And then if you approve this item, we give the go ahead to Kitchell to start rolling out, is somewhere in the 12 months to 18 months. So part of what will drive that is how busy these contractors are that do this modular construction when we're ready to go, and what's already lined up in their facilities. It's a little different than typical construction where they just add crews if they get another project. They have manufacturing facilities, and so if they have projects lined up, you have to fit in the queue. Overall, it's a quicker process than a traditional construction from the ground up, because they're able to do a lot of things modular wise in their factories, but there are some variables depending on how busy they are. So it's in the 12-month to 18-month. We're going to aim for 12 months. But there may be some other things that prolong it out to the 18 months. So that's the window. We're very early in the process now, and we don't have any commitments from any builders, so it's hard to say, but that's kind of my starting schedule.
Okay, so I guess next question for our city manager. So when does Hall Middle School want their space back? And is that going to work with this 12 to 18-month timeframe?
Yeah, so we've worked out a general agreement to do a rolling removal of our staff. So we've already provided them with the office space they needed immediately. And then when the library is vacated, we'll actually bring two of our people out of the facility back to City Hall. And that will leave only the two recreation employees in the school district offices. And the superintendent has said he can accommodate that until this construction project's done.
Great. Okay, this is a business item, but is there any member of the public who would like to ask a question or make a comment about this? Okay, so is there any member of the public online who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to us. We have an ask tonight to consider adopting a resolution to, what number is it? I don't even,
Yeah, there's two resolutions,
Yeah.
one for the budget amendment and one for the Kitchell contract.
so we'll take each individually. Is there anyone who would like to move the first resolution? What's its number? I don't have this here.
5525. Wait.
5525 and
The budget amendment is 5425.
5425.
I'll move. I'm happy to move Resolution 5425, which is the amendment to our 25-26 capital improvement program in the amount of $3,100,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passes. And then the next resolution is 5525. Am I correct? I didn't bring my laptop
Yes.
tonight, so
Mhm.
I'm getting my help from Gabe here. And that is,
Yeah, I can read it.
Sure.
So it's the resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a consultant services agreement with Kitchell for the amount not to exceed $258,000 for design build criteria document development and construction management services for the, above project CIP 26101.
is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you very much, Director Skinner and staff, for the hard work on this. And I look forward to seeing the expansion of our opportunity to serve the public through our Park and Recreation Department. And thank you to the wrecking crew also, who are big supporters of our Park and Recreation. That brings us to item 8.2, which is the Larkspur City Hall Facility Renovation Update. So this also has a handout, and it also has an attachment that's available online. But this is an update from the staff on an ongoing and study of what we do with this lovely building that we're inhabiting now, and where we are as far as the process and steps going forward.
Thank
Oh,
you.
it's you again.
It's me again.
I looked over here at Dan and I was
No.
like,
Julian Skinner, Public Works Director. So tonight's item is an update on our looking at this building and its future. It's not an action item tonight. It is an update, and then we are looking for some feedback on a couple of items as we move forward. So again, we did an examination of this building, which resulted in a historic structures report that was released to the public in June 4th of this year. And then we had a public meeting at the city before the city council on June 18th, where we discussed the historic structure report and the next steps. And so at that time, an ad hoc committee was formed to look at outreach and community engagement opportunities for moving this project forward. And that consisted of Mayor Way and Vice Mayor Andre. And so since June, we've undertaken some efforts that are listed here. We had a couple of meetings. The first included a tour where we had staff walk around with groups of about 6 members of the public and allowed them to look at some of the areas of City Hall that perhaps they don't get an opportunity to see on a daily basis, like what the office spaces are like. And then we also had an open forum town hall meeting that night where we wanted to hear from the public what their thoughts and concerns were with the City Hall building. We then followed it up in October with a charrette style meeting where we had more focused questions that we wanted to pose to the public. And we had a series of workstations around the room. And then we had members of the consultant team of Page and Turnbull that had generated the historic structure report. We're here if anybody had questions on that. And then we posed a series of questions that we have then put online through a questionnaire that's been available on the website. And then we also, based on some of the feedback we received at those first two meetings, we updated our frequently asked questions on the website for some of those topics that seem to be reoccurring. And then there's a subscribe here link that people can click on the website too if they want to make sure that they stay engaged with the process moving forward. One of the things to keep in mind as we go through this process and people chime in is that we, as part of the historic structures report, we did a cost estimate for renovating the building. We don't know what the future use of this building is going to be. And so we had the consultants look at 3 different alternatives to generate cost estimates for the purposes of the historic structure report. Again, option 1 was a basic upgrade of the building. We kind of called it a 10-year fix to fix the mechanical, the electrical, some minor parts of the structural and the accessibility issues in the building. And then we looked at a pretty comprehensive renovation to the building that we called option 2. And then we looked at, let's just fix everything and end up with a building that still looks the same and still has a historic significance, but will give us the life as though we had built something from scratch, brand new. And that was option 3. And so the cost ranged from $6 million for option 1 to $23.5 million for option 3. And again, these are kind of to be considered as the low range and the high range of costs for moving forward with a project. Given that we don't ultimately know what the use and configuration of the building will be, our anticipation, I understand it's a big range, but the anticipation is we'll probably end up with a project that will be somewhere between these numbers based on how much of the building needs to be changed to accommodate what the community wants to see its use being in the future. So that's one of the questions I get asked a lot is, do we have to pick option 1, 2, or 3? And I think I wouldn't focus so much on the 1, 2, or 3 now. I think what will happen is as we move forward and we understand what people want the building to be, it will point us closer towards one of these options, and we'll understand, well, if you want, for example, a grand space on the upstairs and you want to reconfigure everything, you're leaning more towards the option 3 cost because there's a lot of structural upgrades that are needed to increase the use on the second floor. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. Some of the general themes that we received at the public meetings were that we wanted, there was a conversation on how do we get more people out to these meetings? How do we reach more of the public? And then there were some comments on looking at lower cost solutions, something lower than the 6 million, like an interim. And so we had to caution some of the folks that that's a really hard one to cost out because we don't really know what we're going to get into as we start pulling parts of the building around. I think a lot of folks really like the library space downstairs, and they have interest in repurposing that as a council chamber and are thinking that's a simple switch. You're just moving space, but there's a lot of components to that and a lot of things that have to move. And unfortunately, in this building, it's a bit of a domino effect, as we found out when we had a project to replace windows that ended up tripling in cost because of other things that started falling apart when we started removing windows. And then the other comment was, regardless of what project we land on doing now and moving forward with, folks wanted to see a master plan. So I think part of the concern was if we do the $6 million plan, it's pretty much a throwaway because we'd be fixing a lot of things in places and in configurations that wouldn't work with a bigger project. And so those things would be scrapped in a bigger project. So I think there was a concern from folks that we stand back and look at this and we kind of master plan. And if we do a smaller scale project, that we do something that would work with a bigger project. And then the questionnaire asks these specific questions that are listed below, and these match pretty much the stations that we had at the charrette that we were seeking specific feedback on. And one of them was what the public's first take was on the cost estimates and whether people thought we should be doing, and I shouldn't say cost estimates, I would say the renovation schemes, whether we should be doing a lighter reno, like a quick fix type of project to get 10 years, or should we really be focusing on upgrading the building and doing something that has a longer lifespan? And then a question of first floor use versus second floor use. We know the library is moving out and there's going to be vacated space on the first floor, and that looking at this building, and if we were to use it as we use it today, we have a public space here, and then we have some office space also on the first and the second floor. What do folks feel if we were to expand this space here, this public space here? Should it be on the first floor to have better accessibility, or should it be on the second floor because it could be grander with opening up the ceilings, but that would have an additional cost associated with it? And then again, speaking to the library moving out, were there other uses that folks would like to see in this building other than it being council chambers and staff offices? And then a sustainability question, looking at sustainability and how much of that we wanted to incorporate the building. Were folks interested in doing some of those things to the extent that they may actually have a visual effect on the building? And the cleanest example I can think of is, are people okay if this building had solar panels on the roof? It wouldn't look as historic. I think we had the architects weigh in on whether it would or wouldn't affect the historic designation of the building. But it still may not look like City Hall to some people if it had solar panels on the roof. And then the historic structure report focused, or the findings of it showed mostly that it was the outside of the building that had significance, the shape of the building, the turrets at the front. And it was very limited and very marginal once you got inside of the building what was historic. And so we wanted to hear, given that information, are there things that are inside the building that folks are attached to and have as much sentimental value to them as the exterior look of the building? And again, that's where some of the comments on the library is a really nice space downstairs came out. And then the study also pointed out that the two additions, the children's library and the administration suite, both on the first floor, are non-original building additions and don't contribute to the building's historic designation. However, the children's library is older than 50 years, and there's nothing really any more wrong with that than the rest of the building and its square footage that's there. And then similarly, the administration suite, while it's not original to the building, is functional as office space. So we wanted to hear from folks on what their thoughts were on whether those two additions should be removed to reinstate the original footprint, or whether folks thought that if it made sense to keep them, they should just be evaluated the same as the rest of the building and keep them if they work and don't keep them if they don't work. And then the last question we didn't entertain at the charrette, but we did add it as the questionnaire. Given that the costs I mentioned earlier are up to 23.5 million, we just wanted some initial feedback from folks on whether, if that was something that was proposed to them as a property tax charge, would that be of interest to them or not? The feedback on a lot of these was kind of mixed from both ends of the spectrum. There's a summary of it in the staff report. There's still results coming into the online questionnaire. So we propose to follow up with a meeting in the new year where we'll be able to give you a better analysis and look at the questionnaire results, and we'll have had a chance to analyze them and put them in compartments. And again, it's not a survey. We're not taking votes, but it's good to look at the feedback overall and to get some themes out of that to see what the public is looking at. So that's kind of an update on what we've done to date. And so at this point, as we move into the new year, we are planning on coming back early next year, as I mentioned, with some more detailed information based on the questionnaire information. And so we're at this point touching base with you to see if we're on the same right track, and we want to keep going with that and have further conversations. In the new year, we did receive some public feedback that we should be doing more for outreach and engagement. And so we wanted to have a check-in point with you as to whether we should start thinking about bringing a consultant in. I don't 100% at the moment know what that would look like. We don't really have the information to generate an RFP, but if it's something we need to start thinking about, that will be part of our conversation at the next meeting. And then also get your feedback on some of the feedback that we've got to date. Are you happy with the questions that we've put out there? Is there other things we haven't been asking that you think we need to put out there as part of this engagement process so that we can bring you some of that information back when we come back to you in the new year? So I think that's that was the last slide in my presentation. And so I'm going to turn it over. So we're looking for your comments and feedback and opportunity to open it up to the public also.
So before we get into that, I'd just like to acknowledge that we did already receive two written public comments that are posted online on our agenda page, and we're always welcome to comment on items like that. So thank you to Joan and Joan for your responses. Are there questions of the staff report at this point from the council? Yeah.
Couple questions. Jolene, have we, maybe I missed this, but we haven't entertained or commissioned any polling surveys, for a bond measure or anything like that?
Not yet.
No, I mean, we're attempting to focus on the question of what does the community want to see this building become before we get into specifics about what those funding levels might be. So that's our initial focus. I suspect that's obviously, given that we don't have the money to do this scale of a project, it's going to be part of the process at some point, but we think that's a further down the road question.
Okay, so maybe putting the cart behind the horse. I'm kind of thinking of drafting some kind of use plan. So it seems to me like some of the issues are the first versus the second floor, and another that came up. I think I attended the charrette was whether we demolish or alter the non-historic parts like the children's library, the admin suite. And I'm thinking this and other charrette issues, they kind of, and community feedback would be organized and come together in some kind of use plan. And the use plan would also be the revisioning, like, is this going to stay kind of as it is? Or do we think in the 21st century, there are different needs and this could be a community space or whatever. But I feel like that is something that we're doing already, but maybe that's, the question of more input from the community, more of a consultant. Maybe it's a both and where the deliverable is the use plan. And that's the one that also triggers the discussion because you're moving towards a conclusion, which is like, we will have the offices on the first floor because that's accessible. And we will take out the children's room and take out and people could say yes or no, but at least there's a direction there. So anyway, that was a lot of talk, but my question is, are we going in that direction from your point of view?
I don't think you're going to see, we're not planning on doing a use plan in time for coming back at the next meeting. The next meeting will basically be our analysis of the feedback that we've got. And at that point, when we see the number of responses we've got and kind of the themes that come out of that, then that can be part of the conversation at that time, is whether that needs to be the next step in the process, is developing a use plan that we then go out with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Any questions been yet?
I just wanted to further a comment that was made in the public comment about really assessing the needs for space for staff, and doing some kind of study to determine how much space is needed for staff and where where that space may be in the building? Because I feel like our staff is definitely dispersed at this point in time and will be continue to be dispersed, of course, with a new rec building and a library building. But what about Public Works, Planning Commission? I mean, how many staff members do we need to consider housing inside of this building? So some kind of study to determine the amount of space that's needed for staff.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. And I think that as this plan goes forward, that definitely has to be a consideration. I mean, the ad hoc committee, which is the two of us, has the last time we met was September. And I think we've got a lot of data since then with the charrette and with public comment, and obviously with the architecture study and with the engineering study. I think it's time for the ad hoc committee to regroup in January probably and really start charting a course for the next 12 months from there if we can. I know Stephanie and I have talked about the two of us staying on that role moving forward. So that's a possible suggestion. I don't think we really have a use plan or anything in that. We're not at that capacity at this point. So this is a business item, so if there's any member of the audience, I see two hands raised online, but I'd like to come to the members of the audience in the chamber. Please come forward and just make a comment or ask a question. Hold on, don't talk till you get to the mic because then we don't know you. I think so. No? Is it? Hold on, Allison's going to come rescue the mic.
Hi, my name's Hillary Culhane, and I just wanted to mention that some of you may have seen there was an article today in the IJ about this building.
Yeah.
So I really am glad to see that kind of public awareness campaign. I don't know how that article got there, but it's really great to remind people in the community that they need to reach out through the website and give their feedback, because I think we need more of it, and you need more to work with the ad hoc committee. So I'm just thinking that we have to think about ways to encourage or create mailing lists or email mailing lists to Larkspur residents to find out if they've heard about what's going on with the building. I found when I was canvassing local shops before the September meeting that a lot of the employees in these shops downtown didn't even know that there is a planned renovation of this building. So I think that's important to kind of get the word out more. And then secondly, briefly, I'm curious if there would be a list of services that the consultant would be providing if we go with, I think it's option 2 here that Julian mentioned. I think that's a great idea. And it'd be interesting to see what kind of services the consultant could provide that would assist us in public outreach. And that's it.
Thank you, Hillary. I don't think there's any comment on that, but thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, I see two hands online up. Hi. Oops. Yeah, I think you need to unmute. I'm not sure who Allison called on first.
Joan.
Oh, Joan. Okay. Joan, if you'll unmute.
Joan Lubomirsky.
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Hi, great. Hi. I wasn't sure. I recognize that my letter was posted and that
Yes.
council has read it. However, for so others that might be listening or members of the public, I'd just like to say that I urge that funds be provided for significant public education and outreach, because it's clear from the very limited number of people who responded to the survey and attended the public meetings that the city really needs to get more information out there about this vital project. In my work in the past for the city of San Francisco, I performed advertisement and procurement of public outreach services. At that time, there were at least 8 firms that did this kind of work. that were responsible bidders. And I imagine that the County of Marin or the Bridge District or other jurisdictions know of firms to which some sort of consultant, a scope of work could be issued. And I really do believe that some of this public education and outreach should include information about how responsible Larkspur is about doing our projects. That is to say, I mean, not just engineering aspects and design costs, but that we have an excellent record in performing large public works projects like the library and the publicity about Larkspur having the smoothest streets in the world or the Bay Area.
In the
And
world. I like that one.
absolutely cosmic. And that recent delightful article in Marin Magazine
Yes.
provides additional information supporting the point that Larkspur is worthy of an investment in our historic city building. And I believe the renovation of City Hall will improve our property values, as I think it strengthens the downtown historic district that is key to the identity of our town. So thank you for all the work that Public Works has done and the consultants and the staff on this. I really appreciate it and would be happy to be further involved in the future.
Thank you, Joan. Is there a second comment? Can't tell if that, Mr. Holmes? Okay. Hello, Mr. Holmes.
Hi, James Holmes, Larkspur. The city's general plan is, of course, our key policy document. It contains a brief but very relevant and I think instructive and specific policy regarding City Hall. That policy was cited in the staff report for an earlier item, and I'd like to quote it here because I think it should be considered in our conversation. General Plan Action Program FAR-6.1 reads, quote, rehabilitate City Hall to comply with seismic safety standards and capacity improvement needs, unquote. Pardon me. As I read this action program, it specifies two objectives for City Hall. Seismic strengthening and capacity expansion is needed. I think the second objective is already covered because of the space opened up with the library moving, and we can, of course, talk about what goes where. Significantly, though, the plan's concern for expanded capacity needs implies that functional capacity expanding additions like the historic library entrance on the south and the office addition on the north should not be demolished. The other general plan objective is seismic compliance, which I think should be the focus of the conversation. I also wonder whether the general plan's guidance suggests that something like an option 1 plus be considered. I and probably others have been struck by the big gap between option 1 and the other two options. Maybe an option 1.5 focused on seismic strengthening and filling out the now opened up office space without a really major, could be considered without a really major rebuild that probably goes beyond what the general plan contemplates and likely what citizens would pay for with higher taxes once they understand what a larger rebuild would entail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holmes. All right, I close, no more hands raised, and there's one more in the audience. Okay, it's the last one. It's all right. You've got a great sweater on, so I'm allowing it.
Oh, thank you. One every day. So I just wanted to
introduce yourself so
sorry,
that
I'm Tamara Hall, and I live in the Greenbrae part of Larkspur. And I just wanted to provide a counterpoint. I know I've talked to some of my neighbors about it since I'm on Planning Commission. Most of them don't care. And I think they might care if they had to pay for it. So I think maybe that's the difference. It's like most people right now are like, okay, do whatever. We don't, you're going to design it. But if they have to pay for it, then they're going to care. So I think that's maybe something that you need to take into consideration and why you might get more interest if people think they're going to have to pay for it.
Got it. Okay, so let's close this item. And the staff has asked for us to consider two items. One is to continue the outreach and engagement activities in the new year following the ad hoc committee staff format for leading the effort, or seek proposals from consultants. My preference is that we reconvene our ad hoc committee to with the new data that we have and the new information and create a pathway forward. I think Stephanie and I would love to remain on that ad hoc committee, and we've been collaborative with some of the Heritage Board, and we now have a lot more information. So I don't feel comfortable engaging a outside consulting firm when we don't really have the questions decided what do we need them to help us with. Does anyone have a different opinion than that?
I just want to
Yeah.
chime in. I agree. I think at this point, I think we need to talk and figure out what our goals are. Like if we are going to hire a consultant, what do we want this consultant to do? I'm not opposed to hiring a consultant, but I feel like we need a better understanding of what do we want this consultant to do and what's the final deliverable. And I think, the ad hoc committee probably needs to meet first so we can get a better understanding of that. I mean, I do agree that we do want to increase public education. And I also agree with, the public comment that says, there may be a large percentage of our residents who don't care about what happens here, and that's fine. But I think, we need to at least make an attempt to educate people and get the people involved who want to be involved. So that's, that comment is well taken. The other thing I wanted to bring up for my council members is we attended an MCCMC presentation on placemaking. And so I am curious if we are going to hire a consultant, whether we go and, whether we do something that's more traditional or something that is maybe different. And I don't actually understand what the difference is between this placemaking consultant versus just a regular consultant that comes in and does
Public
charrettes and
feedback,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is something that we should talk about in the ad hoc committee, just so we're clear on what our goals are, what are the specific deliverables, what type of consultants are out there and what if they deliver different services, what are the differences? So I just think that, we should probably just talk about that with Hillary with staff, and also I think Hillary Culhane from the Historic Preservation Board is also helping us on the committee. I think these are just questions that we probably want to explore, and then maybe come back to council with a more fully baked plan before we hire a consultant.
How does that sound?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, you guys didn't have a lot of time. Last meeting was September. I just wanted to make a few observations. One is the space will open up pretty soon in the spring. And to me, that creates an opportunity. So I just feel a certain urgency to meet the moment.
Agreed.
Second, I think, whether it's a consultant or whether it's you, I just wanted to list out a little bit a rehash from my prior question, what I think 4 questions are. One is first versus second floor use. The second one is the admin suite in the children's library, and any other spaces, do we demolish them? Do we consider them non-historic? I think Councilmember Margulies, asked a really good one, which is question 3. What is our exact, staffing utilization need? And then 4th is the one that's, because I was mayor when we made this vote and I, cast the deciding votes, I feel really on the hook here. What are we reimagining? Is there any reimagining candidate here? Like, when we think of San Anselmo, reimagine Deer Park, they have this notion that they're going to create Mill Valley, and that was in the IJ today. And do we have any candidates besides the fact that the dais goes down 15 feet and something comes up? I mean, is there any real reimagination going on here? So I think those 4 questions would help me. And whether you can, answer them on your own or you get a consultant, I think it would help in the RFP process to know what that is. So those are 2 observations. The third is, Julian, on your choices, I find the Band-Aid option the least appealing. And I find the third option to be, marginal improvement for $2 million. To me, it's landing on option 2 because I think we probably will need to go out to the public, and there isn't a real sell to a voter where you say, let's make this place safer. or let's do renovations. I think we have to say we're saving a historic structure. Part of that Marin magazine article is how incredibly charming we are. And from, the Lark Theater to here, the bookends of Magnolia, if people don't care, but they'll be paying a 30-year bond, which is going to be 100, 200, a year on their property. And I think that will fire up interest. And my final comment is we may consider just putting a sign in front of City Hall saying this place is going to, needs your input. I mean, the amount of traffic on Magnolia is probably half the city. And, for people to see it in front of the building under discussion may generate some interest. A little QR code and, you go to some compelling website.
Great thoughts. So it sounds like the consensus. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one extra point, and I agree entirely with Councilmember Paulson's suggestions. But one other point I would recommend is that, in the same vein of putting a sign out front of City Hall, there needs to be some kind of tabling, some kind of education that takes place over in Greenbrae.
Oh, yeah.
Because
True.
I don't think a lot of people from Greenbrae come to downtown Larkspur. They do most of their shopping and do a lot already.
Good point.
So whatever we do, we need to make sure we have a focus that's specific to Greenbrae and making sure we get
Good point. Thank
outreach
you.
there.
I think those are all good suggestions for the ad hoc committee to work with staff. I think in our options, it sounds like we're getting ahead of ourselves if we hire out a consultant at this point until we refine what our ask is. So I'd like to propose that the ad hoc committee meet in January and we set up a real kind of regular schedule so that we get the momentum going, and maybe it's meeting every a month or every 2 weeks. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But probably in January, try to relaunch that and see where we go with there. All good suggestions. It's been my experience when we've had consultants helping us imagine things. Sometimes it can be kind of an exercise, well, for me at least, in a little futility because there was a lot of, close your eyes and imagine life. And I think we need to have more specifics than that to get valuable information and to be using our resources in an appropriate way. So are we in agreement with that? So we're going to do that. Thank you, Julian. We'll look forward to regrouping in January sometime or early February, depending upon how schedules go. So that closes that business item 8.2, and we are now adjourned from our regular meeting to closed session. And after closed session, we will reconvene. You are welcome to stay, but we will reconvene after closed session to report out any matters that occurred during closed session. Thank you, everyone. Go. We have returned from our closed session, which we held after our regular meeting on December 5th. And we have, it's December, what day is it? December 3rd. December 3rd. We have returned from our conference with real property negotiators and our closed session, and we have no reportable action. We are on to item 10, which is adjournment. We have a special meeting on December 10th, and our regular meeting on December 17th has been canceled. And then the following meeting after that begins January 7th, 2026. We are adjourned.